relationship here. Today I want to talk to you guys about something that's very special to me, and that is Stallions. This is my 6-year-old American paint horse stud named Rocket. He is a big old baby. I have had Rocket since he was a weanling, so we have had a little over 5 3/4 of a year-ish, almost 6 years of our lives that we've been able to spend together. And Rocket has taught me a lot that I really think is important to share with fellow horse people. There is a misconception that studs are these fire-breathing dragons that you can't have near any other horses because they'll kill them, and it's just a bunch of baloney, basically. This is Rocket's normal attitude. He is a giant puppy dog that just wants to be loved. And just like any other horse, he is a herd animal, so he wants to spend time with other horses, not just people. And one of the biggest things that Rocket here has taught me over these last 5 years is that if you treat a stallion like you would any other horse, they will behave like any other horse. Of course, he knows he's a boy, so if given the chance to talk to another girl, then he gets very excited. But I have spent the time on the ground and under saddle teaching him that he's allowed to do that, but then when I tell him it's time to bring it back, then he has to calm down and quickly pay attention to me. I think the most important thing to do with the stallion, most of them tend to, he's leaving, he's done. Most studs tend to get very insecure because once they're weaned, they're usually kicked off to a paddock by themselves, or if they're lucky, maybe with some geldings, but most studs are usually stalled by themselves. Rocket had the opportunity up until April of last year to be kept with my gelding. Okay, you don't need to be in the camera. Thank you. Come here. Come here. Come here. Thank you. You come here. Come here. Stand up. One of the perks of having a stud with another horse, whether it be another stallion or a gelding, from the time they're young, is those other horses teach them simple things like personal space and how to understand body language. And I feel like especially for a young stud, I put Rocket in with Snickers, I want to say he was about 1.5 years. Prior to that, he had been in with some other stud colts. But they just really teach each other manners, basically, where a lot of studs that are kept by themselves never have that opportunity, and they tend to get very insecure and also very pushy. So if you have a horse that's really pushy, the best way to teach them to respect your personal space is by putting them in with another horse who is a little bit more of a leader than they are, that will put them in their place. Throughout today's video, I've got a couple clips of Rocket with some horses and then some other studs that are put in together, and you can really see how they kind of assert their dominance. And if they're given the chance to just be around other horses, then it's less and less terrifying every time. You see a lot of videos on the internet of stallions just attacking other horses, and a lot of times that comes from ones that, from the time they were young, were never allowed to be with other horses and were never allowed to be told no by other horses. So Rocket was starting to get a little steady when I put him in with Snickers. Snickers was definitely all alpha all the time and really put him in his place, and I think that my old boy was definitely a huge help in my training with this guy. Not to mention, studs require a lot more hands-on time than a gelding will or most mares will. And part of that is because they crave that herd. They're driven by that thought of they need to have their herd and they need to have them all together all the time, and that's how they're safe. If you look at horses in the wild, stallions get very worried when their mares leave. It's the same thing if you're a studs person. You need to spend time with them. You need to take the time to invest in a relationship with them. There's kind of an old adage that you can tell a gelding, you ask a mare, and you discuss it with a stud, and it's so true. I can't force this horse to do anything because of the testosterone levels, especially, even though he's a smaller horse. If he decides he's not doing it, he will fight till the death to prove that he's not doing it. But when you have a relationship with them, it's really easy for something simple as, hey, come here. Something as simple as that is just inviting them into your space and also telling them to get out of it, that helps to build that relationship with them. So today I want to show you guys that, for one, they're not scary. I do not think that everybody should own a stallion, but if you have the training and the experience and the want to spend enough time to develop your horse, I think that owning a stallion can be one of the most rewarding things in life.
Alright guys, so my camera cut off right here, but basically I was getting ready to tell you that throughout the rest of the video, you're going to get to see me introducing a couple of the stallions, and I will give some more input on who each horse is during those clips.
One of the biggest things I want to note is that stallions are extremely vocal. They talk all the time. There's a lot of squealing. If you pay attention to their expression through their eyes and their ears, that is one of the biggest things that you can do when you're introducing not just studs but all horses. Watch their expression. You'll notice in the video that none of the horses look angry, none of them have their ears pinned straight back, none of them are charging at one another. All of them are just introducing themselves. They're just figuring out who stands where and just kind of talking and seeing, okay, I'm going to be the leader or you're going to be the leader. I find that it's very important when you introduce new horses to a group to have a big enough pen that they can get away from each other if it's horses that have never met, but also small enough that you can be in control of the situation. I also find that it's very helpful to have a horse that has more training than the other, so that if there is an altercation between the horses, if one is being more aggressive, you can typically get at least one of the horses off and locked onto you and are able to separate them before any accidents happen. So you will notice that in the videos you'll hear me clucking as well as using a lunge whip just to keep them moving. Another really good tip is when you first introduce them, keep the animal moving as much as possible, and they will basically have their body working, so their brain won't have time to stew on, okay, I want to attack this animal or I want to be at all aggressive to this animal. They're more concerned about you as the person being the leader in that situation. And when you're the leader in their pen, then they don't have to fight over who's the leader between them.
This is play. If you look at ears, there's no aggression. This is all play. Rocket. Good. So this is the first time that we put Storm, who is the buckskin horse, in with Prince, the black and white paint, and Scout, the red and white paint, after he was gelded. He has been gelded now for about 3.5, 4 months, and his personality is completely different than the last time that he was in with these other two boys. As a stud, he was much more dominant and a lot pushier, and now in this clip you can see that Prince has kind of taken over that dominant role since he is now the oldest stud in the group. And with Storm being a gelding now, he is just a lot more mellow, still a little squealy just from learned behavior, but definitely much more mellow, and this initial interaction was absolutely phenomenal.